Welcome. This is the NLPcourses.com show. In the next few minutes, we will push past the hype. We'll pull back that velvet curtain and reveal how to create a successful life with neuro-linguistic programming. You'll dive into physiology, neuroscience, and linguistics so that NLP becomes a practical tool for home and in your career. Now, prepare yourself to make a name, make money, and make a difference. Here's your host, NLP Master Trainer, John Cassidy Rice.
In this week's podcast, we enter into the world of movies where we meet Luke and we save the universe. We converse with a donkey and we choose the red pill or the blue pill. Welcome to this week's podcast. Get your dancing shoes on, grab your partner. We're exploring story structure, and we're going to look at a structure that was used on a couple of little films by a guy called George Lucas. I don't know if you've heard of George Lucas. He did some films around Star Wars. Well, he had a mentor, and his mentor was Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, the hero of 1,000 Faces, is a must-read in Hollywood. And he explored mythology from all around the world and all different time scales, and he discovered there seemed to be a universal pattern to storytelling. And we're going to tap into this universal rhythm of storytelling. To illustrate the structure of the hero's journey, we're going to use some films. We're going to use Star Wars for obvious reasons, and maybe we'll use Shrek. Shrek is a masterclass in storytelling, and also we'll have a look at The Matrix. We could have pretty much used any Hollywood movie and called upon some books, but there are 3 films that most people have seen. You've either seen all of them or 1 or 2 of them. In its first stages of the hero's journey, we hear a call-in, and that call-in in Star Wars was Luke on the moon and a little princess being projected in a 3D image saying, "We need some help." That's a form of call-in. In Shrek is a reluctant call-in where his swamp's been taken over. And also, in The Matrix, it is a literal phone call. So it could be metaphorical or literal. Now, as far as your clients are concerned or your team is concerned, the calling can be them contacting you for help or starting a new project. Next is to accept the call. Now, in Star Wars, Luke leaves the moon and starts off on his quest to become this Jedi Knight. Shrek reluctantly accepts the calling. He wants to get rid of all these fairy tale creatures, and he says, "Does anybody know where this Lord Farquaad lives?" I do. Anybody else know where this Lord Farquaad lives? I do. Right, come with me. And they go off to it, and they beat up his men, and he said, right, you go and rescue the princess, and you can have your swampland back. So he doesn't want to, but he accepts it. In The Matrix, Morpheus offers the red pill or the blue pill. He's only offering the truth. And by taking the pill, he accepts that journey. The next stage is some sort of threshold. In Star Wars, Luke has to accept that he's a Jedi Knight. And one of the scenes that illustrates this is where he lands on this planet to be trained by Yoda. And the ship goes into the mud, and Yoda says, "Take out the ship with your mind and put it onto dry land." And he said, "But it's so big, how am I meant to do that?" And Yoda says, "Step aside and let me do it," and goes, "Use the force, young Luke, use the force." In Shrek, one of the thresholds he needs to come across is that he has a friend. Yes, it's a donkey. Yes, donkey's annoying, but it's still a friend, somebody who wants him. So it could be an emotional threshold. Now, in The Matrix, it's a literal threshold. That threshold was he wakes up in this pod, and he's a battery, and then he's squirted down this tube into the water and is expelled. So he's gone from one threshold to another. And what we find is, with our clients, is once they've called you and they've accepted the next stages and responsibility for their situation, they can start that change. And with that, they're going to have to come across some thresholds. They're going to have to move past their old limiting beliefs, their old thoughts. And with our teams, you accept a new project. And yes, when you accept a new project, you're going to do something different. People's feathers are going to be ruffled and noses point out of joint. But yes, we'll come through it together. Now, in the next part of the hero's journey is finding guardians or mentors. Now, Joseph Campbell didn't use the words guardians or mentors, although that's what we're going to use for our purposes. He used the phrases wise old man, wise old woman. Now, here's the thing. They don't need to be wise, don't need to be old, don't need to be a man or woman. So for our purposes, we're going to use finding the guardians or the mentors. In Star Wars, the mentors are, and I'm talking about the original Star Wars, not the prequels. Yes, Yoda and Ben Kenobi. In Shrek, who is the guardian or the mentor? It is Donkey. Neither wise, old, or a man or woman. In The Matrix, who are the mentors or the guardians?
Sponsor of this week's NLPcourses.com podcast is the NLP Practitioner Training. Change your life. Secure your place on the next NLP practitioner at NLPcourses.com.
That's right. It's Morpheus and Trinity. Now, when you're working with somebody, there is a good chance that you may become the guardian or mentor. And within teams, you'll find that as a team leader, you are a form of guardian or mentor, but of course your role is much bigger than that. Then as we dance our way down the hero's journey path, we come to facing a challenge. In Star Wars, that challenge is the dark side, where he comes face to face with Darth Vader. In Shrek, the challenge, again, is emotional. He's fallen in love with the princess. But how can this beautiful princess love an ogre? And yet she seems to. And he's facing that challenge. In The Matrix, the challenge is Agent Smith, the coding. So that's easy to see our clients, their problems, their challenges. They will need to face up to them. And with our teams, yes, it's not going to be all smooth sailing. We're going to have challenges. But as a group, we can face up to them. We stand united. Look at me. I'm sounding like a motivational speaker. In The Matrix, Neo faces Agent Smith, stands up to the demon. And your clients and your team will have to take responsibility, face their demons, their challenges head on. Next is the transformation of that demon into a resource. In Star Wars, we see Luke attempting to save Darth Vader, who turns out to be his dad. In Shrek, he asks the princess for his hand, but overhears the wrong line, which is, who could love an ogre? And he goes off disheartening, and that's where his guardian, i.e. Donkey, steps in and says, well, do you love her? And in front of all the townspeople, he says, I love you, Fiona. In The Matrix, he dies, and at that point sees the coding and start to manipulate the coding around him. And for our clients, a lot of times their problems, their challenges, is the opportunity to turn their whole lives around. So for example, for myself, I had a challenge and wonderful opportunity of being dyslexic. Now, I didn't always see it as an opportunity and a good thing. But now I do. And if you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, the story of the underdog, that whole book is about, the thing that seemed to hold you back in life, that made life difficult and you wish you never had, is often the key to your success. And that's transforming that demon into a resource. Next, we move on to completing the task for what one's been called for. So, Star Wars. We saved the universe from the dark side. Yay! In Shrek, he gets his swampland back and he gets to marry Fiona. In The Matrix, he can manipulate the code and start to control it. And that's where you start to see that transformation in your clients and your teams as they start to come out the other side of this. Now, in Hollywood, this is often where most movies end. But the hero's journey carries on. There is a returning home. Now, it doesn't have to be a literal place, because in Star Wars, where does he return home to? Well, it's not a physical location, is it? He finds out Princess Leia is his sister. Now it all makes sense. Did you ever wonder yourself why the hero Luke Skywalker never got up with the leading lady in Star Wars? but the bus driver did, Han Solo? Well, it's because they're sister and brother. So the returning home is the sister and brother coming together. In Shrek, it literally is a location, which is the swamp. Now, in the Matrix, it's really the returning home of the human race, and which was represented by Zion, which was I think that's how you say it, a location deep underground. Now, Joseph Campbell in The Hero's Journey also stresses the importance of supporting others on their journey. So once you've done your journey, to fully grow as a human being is you become a support for other people's journey. So for example, the prequels of Star Wars was the story of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now in Shrek 2, and you realise all the Shrek films are the same film, in Shrek 2, Shrek becomes the mentor for the king, who goes on a very similar journey of self-discovery that Shrek had to. And we don't see this part of the story in The Matrix, unfortunately. And if you do not go back home, you do not get a chance to grow. And that'll be the same for your clients. That if they can go and help other people in a similar situation, if your team can pass on their knowledge that they learnt from the project to other teams, they haven't truly grown and learnt the lessons that need to be learnt. Now this is a structure, a story structure. It is one of many, and in the next session we'll cover a couple of others to give you choices in designing stories that are transformational. The hero's journey has become one of the most popular story structures, and if you sit in front of a movie, especially Hollywood movies, with this list and a tick box, then you can literally tick off the scenes. I will put a PDF of the hero's journey on the website. So if you go to nlpcourses.com, find the podcast page, find this episode, and there will be a downloadable PDF so you can sit there watching movies, ticking off each of the steps, and at the same time learning story structure. As always, I'd love to hear your comments. Any questions, if you just want to say hi, head over to the website. Until next time, this is John, the movie buff Cassidy Rice. Hey, did you notice I didn't mention any rabbits this week?
Well, this has been NLPcourses.com podcast. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please leave us a review on iTunes. And make sure that you go over to NLPcourses.com. 2 reasons. First, subscribe to our newsletter. Second, get free transcripts of this program.